NBC Sports presents the best of the National Football League, the American Football Conference. Today from Memorial Stadium, it's the Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Colts.
From the men who brought you basically a sports show, if your football fix wasn't met on Thursday night, it's time for an additional slice. This is basically a football show right now. Let's go!
Barr back to pass, pumps to the left, 8 seconds left, fires to the end zone. It's caught! It's Greg Lewis! Touchdown!
Fires in zone, intercepted. Let's party, Columbus!
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special morning edition here of the Basically a Football Show. I'm Zach, along with me is Greg. Greg, how are you this fine morning?
I'm doing just great, Zach. It's a wonderful morning here in Ohio, and we've got traffic coming up on the 20s, so stay tuned for that.
Traffic and weather on the 20s, and we'll take your phone calls. We're not going to do that.
No.
I am drinking coffee, though, so this is going to be an interesting start to our show. Normally, we do it on Tuesday nights, but I'm busy.
Yeah,
things are happening.
We are creatures of the night with our podcast, and this is very unusual for us to be doing a show this early in the day. So,
I mean, there's sunlight. I mean, there are workers outside tearing up the concrete. We're replacing the sidewalks in the neighborhood because supposedly they think all the trees that have been planted, the roots have moved up the concrete. So, I had to deal with that. And hopefully they don't hit a water main like they did yesterday and I couldn't flush the toilet for like 20 minutes. But anyway, none of that has to do with what happened on the gridiron this weekend, Greg. And to be honest, it was a meh week of football. Pretty
much, yeah. Really, not a whole lot in the NFL to really talk about. College, you had the LSU Ole Miss game, but other than that, things pretty much stayed true to form. So not one of our big weekends, but we will forge ahead and do our bit.
Yeah, we had, like you said, the one episode in college, but not a whole lot going on. But we will forge forth because we are your football Sherpas. We will start in the National Football League, and we'll start with Thursday's game. The first really big Thursday night game in terms of implications in divisions and playoffs down the road. And we were kind of afraid that it could really kind of taint this playoff race, but I don't think that was the case as the Broncos came in. And they were just the better team against San Diego on Thursday in a 35-21 game. Peyton Manning, 286, 3 touchdowns. All 3 touchdowns thrown to Emmanuel Sanders, who had 120 yards and 9 receptions. And the game wasn't too different than the playoff game they played last year, where eventually just Denver was showed themselves to be the better team and outlasted the Chargers.
I'd say this Broncos team looks better, I think, in some aspects than they looked last year. They've really got it together. The defense is tough. I heard some talk, and I want to run this past you. There was some talk by people earlier in the week that the Chargers are the Broncos might be one of the best teams ever. I don't know that I'm ready to give them that designation at 6-1, but I will say that they if I had to pick a team right now as my prohibitive Super Bowl favorite, it would be the Broncos. They seem to be like a notch above everyone else at this point.
Well, at least in the AFC they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and best team ever, no. I mean, if you were going to say that last year's team was up there, much more impressive, I thought, last year than this year so far. But they're better on both sides of the ball. I think their defense is playing a lot better, and
right.
that's the important thing for the Broncos is to be able to do that. And hopefully, if they do a Super Bowl, end up scoring some points and not throwing the ball over the head in the first play. But
I don't know that the Chargers were exposed or anything in this game. I think you're right. Denver's just the better team. I still think the Chargers are a good team, but I'm not as quick to throw them into the upper echelon of the AFC as I was before they played this game. Now, again, it's a Thursday, so you've got to kind of qualify everything with that. But the Broncos, like you said, clearly the better team, and I think the defense, they shorted up from last year. They've made some improvements. So, again, they're the class of the AFC, no question about it.
The thing that the Chargers need to look out for, though, is they're only a half game up on Kansas City now.
Yeah.
With Kansas City beating the Rams pretty soundly this week. Not anything to really touch on there.
But this Chiefs team is, I think, a lot tougher than anybody thought they were going to be this year.
Yeah, I mean they're very under the radar. You know, they lose that first game to Tennessee at home, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, we all thought the Chiefs were going to regress, and now they're going to regress. They're going to be bad." So then you just put them out of your mind. You forget about them. And slowly but surely, they win a couple games. They knock off the Chargers a week ago, and now they're 5-3, and they're right back in the middle of all the talk.
Yeah, maybe it's time to put away
or 4-3. Sorry, but
maybe it's time to put away all the regression talk at the beginning of the season, because I think that if anything has been proven this season in the NFL, is that just like last year and the year before, you just don't know anything going into it. And now we're going to be going into week 9 here.
Roughly the halfway point.
Right. We have a good idea of who the good teams are and who the bad teams are going to be, but I think that there are some surprises in the good teams and surprises in the bad teams, but I don't know that I'm going to put as much stock into the whole preseason stuff next year as I did this year.
Yeah, it's just one of the things we expected it. We all thought the Chiefs were kind of overperforming, but maybe it's just Andy Reid's a decent coach, and he has them on the straight and narrow, and Alex Smith is playing decently. Jamal Charles is back and running well, and that defense really hasn't skipped too much of a beat.
Right,
so far.
Exactly.
So, yeah, they beat the Rams 34-7.
The hapless Rams.
Yeah, in the Show Me State Showdown. Not too much of a showdown as we transition to Sunday, one of the early Sunday games. But the earliest of all the Sunday games, Greg, the earliest kickoff in NFL history, as the Lions went on the road to visit the Falcons in London, England, in Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, at the Falcons' summer home, I guess, is what we'll call that.
Yeah, the Falcons, I guess they made a big deal to the NFL that if they were going to do this, they wanted it to be a Falcons home game in every sense. With the PA announcers and the giveaways and the signage. And
I think, if I remember right, the Falcon was painted on the middle of the field on the 50, right?
Yeah. Right. They had the Falcons logo on the 50.
A lot of good it did them.
A lot of good it did. I mean, it looked like it was going to work early as they went up 21-0 at halftime. But slowly but surely, the Falcons remembered, oh, wait, we're the Falcons this year. And just... The Lions kept fighting back. They kept coming back, and at the end of the game, it was kind of a weird series of plays for Detroit. They're down by 2. They get the ball back with 1:38 left, and they were able to kind of get into field goal range, where the Lions, using their third kicker of the season, Matt Prater, he lined up for a 43-yard attempt. And missed. But wait, there was a flag.
Oh, because there's always a flag.
Yeah. But even though the Lions managed the clock perfectly, they somehow got a delay of game penalty after that. So the penalties automatically enforced, so the Falcons can't say no and win the game right then and there. So the Lions got another shot at 48 yards away, and Matt Prater got the ball, or kicked it straight down the middle for a 48-yard attempt and the win. Largest blown lead in Falcons franchise history, and Lions, they looked like they were attempting to go back down the other side of the hill like they did last year, but they come away with a 1-point win.
They're winning games this year that they would have lost last year. Now, but I also want to point this out. I believe at this point last year they were 6-2 also.
Yes.
So we're still not out of the woods yet with this Lions team, but this is a game that I think that last year they lose. But I want to back up for a second about the penalty.
Yeah.
A delay of game penalty.
Yeah.
I don't know that I like all certain penalties being automatically enforced no matter what, because that kind of screwed the Falcons in that sense. Whereas
I think
if it's a holding penalty, they decline it, game over.
The way we've always been told is the game ends unless it's a penalty on the defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you would think if it's a penalty on the offense, and especially if it's a delay of game, there's certain penalties that, under 2 minutes they have a 10-second runoff.
Right.
Why would something like delay a game not be that type of penalty? You would think that a delay a game, you would give a 10-second runoff. That would make more sense to me than anything else.
It's just one of those things that the NFL rulebook is.
There are quirks.
A lot of quirks, and I honestly, God, I often wonder if the officials really do know it as well as they say they do, because there's so many little things here and there. I just can't imagine how you can just pull that stuff from memory whenever you need to. But yeah, if it's not a defensive penalty, the game should have ended. I didn't see the end of it, so was the clock at 0 when he kicked the second shot at it?
You're not going to ask me to say that I watched this thing live. It was at 6:30 a.m. my time.
Yeah, of course, right.
I am not watching that football game.
You know what I heard too is that they're talking about having 5 games in London season after next. 5.
Yeah.
God, I mean, enough of this already. But yeah, the Lions moved to a quiet 6-2 and under the radar 6-2, and here's where we were with them last year. We're there again. Let's see how they handle it this time with Jim Caldwell as opposed to Jim Schwartz.
I'm just looking at their schedule, and you know what? It may be bad. They may just go down the other side because they have the bye week next week, so they have the week to kind of gather themselves and come back from London and do all that. But here are their 3 games right out of the bye. They host Miami, who's not playing terribly right now.
Right.
Then they go to Arizona and to New England.
Ouch.
Those are 3 losable games for them.
Right.
They get a little reprieve on the other side where they play Chicago, Tampa, Minnesota, Chicago before they go to Green Bay to finish the season. So they could very well lose the next 3 and then win the next 4, but these are the Lions.
Well, and you got to think too that just the NFL being what it is, one of those easy games they're going to trip up on one of them. Yep. Minnesota their defense has been performing admirably, I guess would be the way to put it. So I don't know. I mean, and they are the Lions too. So 6-2. They've played differently this year than they did last year. The winning games they probably would have lost last year, but still a long way to go. But this Falcons team, it's over. They need to blow it up and start over again. It wasn't an unfortunate season last year. They were that bad last year, and they're that bad again this year.
Yeah. We'll move on with the rest of the normal slate of early games. The Texans go into Tennessee and get a 30-16 win over the Titans. Zach Mettenberger making his first start there for your not so irrationally confident Titans anymore.
Right.
Did you see the J.J. Watt sack?
I did not.
Well, all during the week, Zach Mettenberger, because he was so excited he was going to start this week, he went to Twitter and was posting selfies.
Yeah, I heard about that, right.
And so J.J. Watt, he goes and sacks the kid, first NFL start. And what is J.J. Watt's celebration? Well, a selfie with Zach Mettenberger in the background. Obviously, he doesn't pull out his own phone. It's the mimicking of the hand, but
right.
They asked him afterwards. He's just he kind of said something along the lines of that's just welcoming him to the league.
Yeah,
it's not a kid's game anymore.
Yeah, it's. The only thing I got to say about the Titans at this point is they finally wore the uniform combination they should wear all the time.
Yeah,
with the navy jerseys and the white pants, it looked fantastic, but. I missed the boat on a lot of teams this year, but this is 2 years running now I've missed the boat with the Titans. I think it's about time I give up on these guys.
Maybe.
But the Texans...
You don't have any faith in the Zach Mettenberger era?
Not so much, no.
No? Okay.
No, but the Texans 4-4. Pretty much I think exactly what we expected them to be at this point, where they would be better, but not quite up to the level they were before they fell off the cliff last year.
Yeah, it's the thing is, if this team had a quarterback, like a good quarterback...
Right.
They'd be better.
Absolutely.
They'd maybe be like 5-3 at the least.
I think so because they've got some good weapons on offense. You've got Arian Foster
and that defense.
And the
defense is very good.
Very good. But I just don't know how far you can go with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your quarterback. I think the guy's a capable backup. He's a good guy to have in your pocket if your starter goes down. But to put all of your hopes on a season on that guy, I'm just not. I can't imagine for the life of me that Ryan Fitzpatrick is better than Ryan Mallett, who's his backup.
Right. I don't know why they wouldn't give him a shot, especially if you're going to look for a quarterback to take you forward.
Right.
You you would think you want to try somebody at least like Mallett. So, like if you can try him out and he's young, so maybe you can ride him for a few years. Or you say, he's young, but he's not our guy. And then you go and you get a quarterback in the draft this year. I suspect they're going to draft a quarterback this year anyway, because if they're not playing Mallett, maybe they know something that we don't.
Well, there have been a lot of stories, even back when he was at Arkansas, that he's kind of an attitude problem guy. Mm. So, that might be a part of it too. But I've also heard a lot of good things about him, that he's very talented. But I guess you've got to, at some point, if you're the coaching staff, decide if putting up with him is worth what he brings to the table. And apparently the Texans don't think so at this point, if that's the reason why they're not using him.
Yeah. The other thing to note is that was the 200th win in Texans franchise history. So,
wow, that's not bad.
Yeah, congratulations to them.
I don't think the Browns have reached 100 wins yet. They both came into the league at about the same time.
Come on, the Browns have had to have won 100 games by now, right?
Well,
right?
Let's see.
Probably.
I don't know. It'd be close. Maybe, but I guarantee it's nowhere close to 200. I know that. Oh. But anyway.
Anyway, we'll move on. We'll go down to Tampa Bay for some reason. I feel bad for anyone that went to that game because not only was it two bad teams playing against each other, it has to go into overtime of all things. And the Vikings win on a fumble recovery return for a touchdown. Teddy Bridgewater wins his first road football game in the National Football League. How about that?
241 yards and a TD, not bad.
No, not bad at all.
The only thing I got that I really can add to this game is that my girlfriend plays in a fantasy football league.
Yes.
Well, a couple weeks ago, she had a defense that was on a bye, so she had to pick up a new defense to play that week.
Yep.
And her options were a couple other teams I don't remember, and the Vikings. And I said, "Oh, you really don't want the Vikings. They're not good." Since then, the Vikings have scored, I think, 15 and 22 points for her in the 2 weeks she's had them. So that's all I can tell you about the Vikings.
Yeah, well, it also helps that they play the Buccaneers this week, and I made it a mantra that if anyone plays Tampa Bay, they get to play on my team this week. That was even going to be the case with Gerard McKinnon, the running back there for the Vikings, who I picked up. But I picked up. I went to go do waivers, and I forgot to set my lineups, and I ended up playing yesterday with no running backs.
Oh.
But I ended up winning because Gronk went off. So
right, and plus, I think you were playing the worst team in our league too, which helps.
Which, by the way, we'll get to it in a minute. But he had Ben Roethlisberger on the bench.
Oh my God!
So if he had switched his quarterbacks, I would have gotten destroyed.
Oh my God!
But props to him. He had Joe Flacco, who had I don't know. I think he had 3 points as a quarterback.
Oh man!
But we'll get our boy Joey Flacco here in a minute. But we'll stay in the NFC South. We'll go up to Carolina with the Panthers and the Seahawks, which wasn't a good football game.
No, but wasn't this pretty much the exact same game they played last year against each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't the game in Carolina last year, too?
I believe it was. And I want to say that the Seahawks won that game 12-9 or 12-10, something like that.
It was 12-5.
Oh, 12-5, okay.
Yeah, I believe it was 12-5 last year. And so it was a similar thing. It's just field goals all game. It's 6-3 at half. Then it's 6-6 going into the fourth quarter. The Panthers get another field goal, so it's 9-6. Minutes... seconds remaining in the game, and Russell Wilson pulls out a late touchdown pass to get Seattle out of their nosedive, and somehow knock off the Panthers 13-9. What a great football score that is!
Was it? Now, is that because that both teams have good defenses? Is that what it was, or was it just they just both played that badly? I didn't see this one.
I didn't see too much of it either. I was all over the place that morning. I'm just going off the stat sheet. I don't see too much to say anything otherwise.
Right.
23-yard touchdown pass with 47 seconds remaining.
But these Seahawks, I mean, they have, other than that dismantling of Green Bay they had in Week 1, they haven't been terribly impressive in their wins so far this year.
No, I mean, they haven't really been terribly impressive at anything.
Right.
Right now.
For some reason, I just thought because they're young, I thought that the Super Bowl hangover thing wouldn't affect them, but it seems to have gotten to them a little bit.
A little. But it also seems, I mean, you coming out of the Percy Harvin story of 2 weeks ago or last week, now you get reports this week that everyone's pissed at Marshawn Lynch, and Marshawn Lynch is pissed at everybody.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
I mean, well, actually, I mean, you take the Percy Harvin stuff, the Russell Wilson isn't black enough stuff, and now the fact that I guess Marshawn Lynch is pissed at everybody and the Seahawks aren't going to re-sign him, maybe they should trade him and all this garbage. Maybe things are just... You know, we were anticipating when they won the Super Bowl. We saw they had all these young guys. They're going to be good for a few years. They're going to be in Super Bowl contention. Everything's just kind of falling apart at the seams. It's like the glue is coming just a little bit undone on the Seahawks team.
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe it's because they've all got contracts coming up and stuff. And everybody will tell you that winning cures all ills. And last year, this was a team that was dominant and just got the job done throughout the season. This year they haven't been dominant. They've struggled, and all of a sudden, we're seeing things that we normally might not have seen last year. We're seeing this year because we don't have the winning to cure all the ills, as they say.
Yeah, and with the win, they're tied for second place in the NFC West, but they're two games still behind Arizona, and we kind of thought that maybe that gap would shrink over the last couple weeks, but that stayed constant, and I don't know if Seattle's ever going to come and take down Arizona unless Arizona falls off, has a Detroit Lions-esque collapse. But, things are getting tougher because you have Arizona at the top of this division, Dallas and Philly, Detroit and Green Bay, Carolina, and even New Orleans is technically in there somehow. Seattle, like we talked about last week, Seattle's got a rough road to make something of themselves. And, I mean, if they're just going to try to beat teams 13-9. That's not going to work out for them, I don't think. Well,
I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago that this could get away from them quickly, and it's starting to get away from them a little bit. They're in the playoff hunt, obviously, but as things progress, if they don't start playing better football, they could drop right out of this quick. They could be out of it by, say, week 12.
Yeah, they might get some medicine next week, though, as Oakland goes into Seattle next week.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, especially at home. But
I wonder if the Raiders haven't won yet, right?
No, the Raiders are a winless football team currently. Yes.
You know what? We might just see our second 0-16 team here because this Raiders team is not good. But
we'll look at the schedule when we get down to what they did with your Brownies. But we mentioned Joe Flacco a couple of minutes ago. Let's talk about Joey Flacco. Another tight one against the Bengals. Both teams fighting for NFC North or AFC North supremacy. But the Bengals hold tight and pull one out in the end with a 27-24 victory. Andy Dalton with a 1-yard quarterback sneak to get the lead and eventually the win for the Bengals.
You know, I was ready to bury the Bengals last week after that horrible game they played against your Colts, and here they are. They come back. They beat a good Ravens team, and they're top of the division, 4-2-1.
Yeah, okay. You realize that 4-2-1 does not look better than 5-3.
No.
How does that make sense?
It looks weird. That's what it looks.
It looks so weird.
But
so very much weird.
But you know what though? As the season goes on, that's a loss that they can't get that loss. I mean, it's not going to be a win.
Right, they can't get that loss. But
that's one less loss that you know what I mean? Like say they're both at their 8th game, or Cincinnati's still got one in hand or whatever you want to call it. But
yeah.
As things progress, there's a game that the Bengals can't lose. They can't win it, but that tie is going to come into play, I think, before it's all said and done, which is ridiculous, but that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, but good for the Bengals to come out of this little nosedive, and they almost lost it again. 2 fourth-quarter turnovers there for Andy Dalton. Just to see how good they played those first 3 weeks to now what they're doing. This is more the Bengals team we thought we'd see. Which
exactly.
Is kind of, what are they? I don't know. This is what we thought about the whole AFC North. So it was surprising when the Ravens were starting to get a charge and the Bengals were 3-0, and it's like, well, now everything's kind of back to where we thought it would be with Cincinnati's 4-2-1, Baltimore's 5-3, Pittsburgh's 5-3, Cleveland's 4-3. Your Browns aren't out of it yet.
Not yet.
if you want to be real about it.
But see, just real quick on that, how important is that Jacksonville loss to the Browns now?
Yeah, I mean, if they'd won, they've been just like everybody else, 5-3.
Yep.
So that's true. But yeah, so the Bengals back on top of the.
This thing's going to be a dogfight in the AFC North. I don't know if it's going to be a fun to look at dogfight, but it's going to be a battle right down to the end.
Yeah, it's like a battle between a bunch of Chihuahuas. It's not like a I don't want to be ranking dogfights, I guess, but it's not like two pit bulls going at each other.
No, it's going to be watching four average teams battle it out for the top spot.
It's like a dachshund. I guess I don't know. I don't know. We'll keep forging forth. We'll go to the Battle of Florida. The Dolphins and the Jaguars. Dolphins, yeah, they're fine. They're 3-1 on the road now with a 27-13 win over Jacksonville. Blake Bortles with a couple bad turnovers there late to help seal the loss for the Jags. And Dolphins are 4-3. They're right mixed with everybody else.
Yep, they're hanging in there. This Jacksonville team, I don't know what. Just hang in there, I guess, is all I can tell the fans of that team. It will get better eventually. You would think. Yep. Hopefully.
You would think.
But the Dolphins, I was ready to bury them 3 weeks ago, but they weren't playing good football 3 weeks ago. I mean, they came out strong, and then they looked awful, and now I don't know, I'm still not sold on them, but they're playing better. I'll say that.
Yep. And at least they're not the Jets. So
this is true.
Yeah, they're not going to be last place in their division this year, because those Jets.
Oh my God!
Oh, those Jets! Kyle Orton throws 4 touchdown passes in a 43-23 win. Really, the only thing I want to talk about. Did you see, to just epitomize everything the New York Jets are right now? Did you see the kickoff return?
No.
That didn't work.
No.
Well, the Jets tried the stupid.
Was it that they tried to do the same fake out thing that? Who ran it a few weeks ago?
What, the Rams?
Yeah, was that it? Yeah, didn't they try to do the same thing as that?
What it was okay. So they have Percy Harvin, and I forget who it was. I have it. Let me pull it up. I don't have the names, but it's Percy Harvin and whoever number 10 is on the Jets now. And they're both deep in the end zone for the kickoff attempt. So Percy Harvin goes back to get the football, while the other guy, because they're at home and they're the Jets, they're wearing all green, he lies down in the end zone to blend in with the turf. No one's going to see him, right?
Right, yeah.
So Percy Harvin gets the ball, runs a couple steps forward, and he's supposed to throw it back to him because no one's supposed to notice him, except somebody did go cover him, so that Percy Harvin's at the 3-yard line with the football in his hands like, crap. And then it just gets smothered by everybody. So the Jets trying to make something of themselves, and it just all goes to hell so quickly. And the New York Jets, everybody.
Yeah, well, when you're letting Kyle Orton come out and the Buffalo Bills, who are not known for their offensive prowess, score 43 points on you, you know you're in bad shape.
Yes.
But the play I was thinking of with the kickoff return was a college team that did that, where the guy laid down in the end zone and tried to blend in. I think it actually worked for them. But
right, well, that's college.
These are the New York Jets we're talking about, so of course it didn't work.
Yep. We'll stay with the AFC East. The New England Patriots. Those Bears. They made quick work of those Bears.
Yes, they did. 5
touchdown passes from Tom Brady. Rob Gronkowski, welcome back to the league. 9
no kidding.
149 and 3 TDs in a 51-23 drubbing of the Chicago Bears.
31 second quarter points for the Patriots in that game.
Yeah.
31. They could have not scored in any of the other quarter of the game. They still would have won by 8. That's how dominant their performance was.
As good as the Patriots were, and as bad as the Bears were. I mean, the Bears are bad. Did you see? We see the celebrations for some of these guys when they do simple tasks like getting a first down,
right?
Or tackling someone. Did you see Bears defensive end Lamar Houston?
No.
Well, so it's late in the game. Chicago's down by 35 points, 25 points at the time. And Jimmy Garoppolo's in it at quarterback. So Lamar Houston goes in, and he gets a sack.
Oh, no.
of New England rookie backup quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. Down 25, you sack the backup quarterback. That's call for celebration, of course. Well, he jumps up and does a little, thing, and then all of a sudden collapses. And then he just kind of sits on the ground for a minute. It's like, oh, well, maybe he just lost his balance. Well, he tries to stand back up again, takes a couple steps, and then falls back down. He tore a ligament in his knee.
Oh, my God.
Celebrating a sack down 25 points on the road.
Well, you know what? I mean, I don't want to say it serves him right, but that's the football gods telling you that you don't do stuff like that when you're losing.
No.
You know, but that's too bad. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's funny. I'm sorry.
It's very funny. It's hilarious.
That kind of sums up the Bears season, I think, this year.
Yeah, right.
Even when something goes right for them, it still goes wrong.
Yeah. We'll move to the later slate of games, and we'll start with my Colts.
Oh, boy.
Andrew Luck showed up.
Yeah, but unfortunately, no one else
showed
did.
up.
Yeah.
Defense nowhere to be found as Ben Roethlisberger. Oh, my God, Ben Roethlisberger. 40 of 49, 522 yards passing, and six touchdowns as the Steelers, they just went all up and down that Colts defense. 51-34. Roethlisberger, a mere 32 passing yards away from breaking Norm Van Brocklin's NFL record. But 522 and 6 touchdowns, that's a pretty good day.
It's a pretty good afternoon. And all of a sudden, the Steelers team that we weren't sure about, they're 5-3. And I think they're well coached. If the defense starts coming together, these guys are going to be tough, I think. The Colts, man, I really thought this was a game the Colts would win going into it. I didn't think the Steelers had reached the point where they could beat the Colts even at home, and I certainly didn't think they could do this to the Colts. But
you know what, though? Watching the game, it wasn't until late in the fourth quarter when it was kind of settled. I never thought the Colts were really out of it.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck provides that kind of confidence. And, I mean, they scored 34 points. It's not like they had a bad offensive day.
Right.
400 yards, 3 touchdowns for Luck. T.Y. Hilton, 155 yards receiving. The offense was there. The defense has always been my issue with this team, and they've kind of had up and down weeks. And I mean, hell, they shut out the Bengals last week.
Right.
It's just so strange to go from shutting out the Bengals at home, and then you go on the road and you let up 51 to the freaking Steelers. It wasn't even like the Steelers were running the ball down the Colts' throats or anything. Just Ben Roethlisberger was all over the place. Antonio Brown had 133 yards, and the defensive coverage was poor, and they weren't able to get a whole lot of pressure on Roethlisberger either.
Well, yeah. Well, you take that into consideration. If you can't get any pressure on him, you're not doing good coverage. Yeah, of course he's going to throw for that many yards because. Yeah. But this one I'm going to just call an aberration for the Colts. I don't think the defense is that bad. An off day, but. The Steelers team, if they play like this, I mean, well, hell, anybody that scores 51 points in a game, they're going to win a lot of games. But every week they seem to be getting a little bit better. And I think I called it back at the previous show that I thought that they'd end up winning this division. I'm going to stick by that. I still think this is the team that you got to watch out for because if you remember last year, they started slower than this and they came on strong towards the second half of the season. And I'm liking this team a lot. I think they're going to be a tough out for anybody.
Yeah, I mean they're a half game ahead of Cleveland, and they're a half game behind Cincinnati, and they're tied with Baltimore. So they're right there with anybody else.
But you know what? This is going to give you the perfect. When we started the show, I said the NFL is just so hard to predict. This is going to give you a perfect example of that. Okay, The Colts last week shut out what many people thought was the best team in the AFC North. They beat the Bengals 27-0. They lose to a Pittsburgh Steelers team 51-34, the same Steelers team that lost 31-10 to the Cleveland Browns. Who lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars?
That also lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's NFL football.
That's NFL football. Yeah.
I expect within the next 2 weeks, every year you get that they put out that wheel of parity thing where this team beat this team, who beat this team, who beat this team, who beat this team, who beat this team, all the way back around in a circle. Happens every year. It's just the way the NFL works. The any given Sunday thing. It's not some sort of cliche that people throw out there just because. Right. It's not like it's unproven. It's a cliche because it happens, and that's the thing with the Colts. Really, I mean, even though they lost the first 2 games and then won the next 5, they played 7 straight solid football games. And they had one bad one. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, I think, too, with this game, as we get later into the season, and if they don't fall apart, and I don't think they will, you'll kind of forget this game even happened. But this is one of those.
I think last year they got blown up by the Rams at home last year, I think.
I think you're right, yeah. It was, yeah.
And, it's something, it's like you throw up your hands like, I don't know, man. Just,
Well, even the top teams in each conference normally are going to have 3 or 4, even 5 losses. Mm-hmm. And those losses got to come from somewhere. You don't just like tack them out. They didn't just go undefeated and go, we're going to give them 5 losses. I mean, teams play bad games no matter how good they are. So I don't think I'd sweat it too much as a Colts fan. I think the Steelers are putting it together. And like I said, they're well coached. They're a great organization. So it should be interesting in the AFC North.
We'll go from my team to your team, Greg. The Cleveland Browns, 23-13 win at home over the Oakland Raiders. The Browns won. Were they good?
Offense was terrible throughout. They finally managed to put a little something together in the fourth quarter, but this was a game that if the Raiders had any semblance of any kind of an offense, I don't think the Browns win this game. The offense, if they don't fix these offensive issues they've had for the past 2 weeks, they're in a lot of trouble because they should have not had this much trouble with the Raiders, and that score is a little deceiving. This game was a lot closer than the final score would indicate. The Raiders played them tough all the way through, but the Browns got a couple of big plays. They get the touchdowns and they win. But I didn't walk away going, hey, they looked really impressive this week. As it says right here, the Browns struggled but beat the Raiders. That's pretty much how it went.
So we're talking about their 0-7. Let's look at their schedule real quick. At Seattle next week.
Oh.
Loss. They're home against Denver the week after that. Loss. They go to San Diego the next week.
Oh, my God.
Loss. Then they come home and they host Kansas City on Thursday.
Well,
it's a Thursday, so maybe?
Yeah, anything could happen, but
doubtful.
Have you seen these guys play? The Raiders?
Yeah.
They are god-awful. I mean, there's just nothing to look at and go, there's some hope there.
Real quickly, then they go at St. Louis. Maybe, but the Rams have shown that they can play tough when at times. Right. Home against San Francisco, at Kansas City, home against Denver or Buffalo, and then at Denver to finish the season.
The only one of those.
At St. Louis is a maybe. Home against Kansas City is a maybe. And maybe Buffalo at home late in the year.
Okay, here's how I would put it. The Kansas City game I would put that as a Stranger Things Have Happened game. The Raiders probably won't win it, but Stranger Things have happened. The Rams, even, there are weeks when they play good football.
Yeah, and it's in St. Louis, too.
Right. Those are the 2 really solid chances I see at them getting one. Maybe Buffalo. Is Buffalo in Oakland?
Buffalo's in Oakland, yeah.
That's another Stranger Things Have Happened game. But you know what? You hear that schedule and you go, it's not a stretch to say this team could easily go 0-16 this year.
Sure.
And man,
I don't see them winning it in the next 3 weeks.
No. I think if they beat either Seattle or Denver, that's going to be one of the biggest upsets we've seen in the NFL in a long time.
Yeah. By the way, that game against St. Louis, winner gets Los Angeles. Go Rams.
Go Rams, exactly.
We'll stay with the later games. And probably the most intriguing game of the weekend, the Eagles traveled to Glendale to play in the Giant Toaster Oven against the Arizona Cardinals. What a game it was. A lot of back and forth, a lot of just kind of high-flying offenses, both quarterbacks with impressive games. But the Eagles with a few turnovers, the Cardinals get a 75-yard touchdown pass from Carson Palmer to John Brown. Who's he? Doesn't matter. But he got the game-winning points as the Cardinals hold off the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Cardinals, the best record in the NFC.
This is a good team, this Cardinals team. Carson Palmer plays just well enough to keep them out of trouble. And thank you, Carson Palmer, because I had to use him in my fantasy league this week because my other 2 quarterbacks are Matt Ryan and Jay Cutler, so you see how screwed I was in that respect.
Yeah.
So I picked up Carson Palmer because he was the best available. He did a good job. But this is a good Cardinals team. I mean, the Eagles are a very good team, a great offense, and the Cardinals held them to 20 points. Now, granted, it was on the road, but I watched a lot of this game, and they just went back and forth. These are two very evenly matched teams. At no point did I think the Cardinals were upsetting the Eagles or anything like that. They just both played. They're well matched, and I like this Cardinals team a lot. I liked them going into the season, and they're proving me right so far.
So the guy that I said caught the 75-yard touchdown pass, John Brown. Do you know where he went to school, Greg?
I haven't the slightest.
You know, I want to take any guesses?
Let's say I'm going to go with Slippery Rock.
Pittsburgh State.
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
But which Pittsburgh am I talking about, Greg?
Oh, it's not. It's going to be
There's
like
no H.
Is it in Mississippi?
Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Oh, Kansas. Okay.
So Pittsburgh State University in Kansas. Do you want to guess the mascot of the Pittsburgh State University football team?
No, I haven't the first clue. An armadillo.
They are the Pittsburgh State Gorillas.
I love it. Is that even an NCAA school?
I think it's D3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a feeling they don't send a lot of guys to the NFL at Pittsburgh State.
No, probably not. But, third-round pick out of Pittsburgh without an H state, the Pittsburgh State Gorillas.
Well, he did a really nice job on that catch. I don't know if you saw it, but
yeah.
he had to work a little to get it, and then he just managed to stay on his feet and take it in for the score. But this is a good Cardinals football team. I like them a lot. I think they're going to be tough. I like them to win the division at this point.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm actually going to be at probably the biggest game of the year for the Cardinals, or at least later in the year. I'm going to be going out there the week before Christmas as they host the Seattle Seahawks.
Ooh, that'll be a good one.
Yeah.
Should be a good one. We'll see where Seattle's
that'll be the second to last game of the year. It's a Sunday night game.
Nice.
I'll get Al Michaels in the building.
You have to make some sort of sign so we can look for you on TV.
You won't see me on TV.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not in the TV advantageous position.
All right.
There, but
well, yeah, that'll be a good one to go to if the Seahawks haven't completely imploded by then.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. But the Cardinals, they go to Dallas next week. Big game for them.
A lot of that's going to depend on a game we'll talk about here shortly, but a lot of that's going to depend on the health of Tony Romo.
Yep.
Because I don't know how many more times he can take that beating on his back and come back to play. I just don't know how much more he can do with that.
Yeah. Well, let's finish out Sunday and talk about your other favorite team.
Oh my God.
I don't know why I thought the Packers were just going to go in and win. The Saints were playing at home. Why did we think anything otherwise?
I don't know.
Saints are 3-0 at home, 0-4 on the road. This is stupid. I hate this stupid football team. But they get a big win over your Packers, 44-23. Was it just simply the Saints were at home, so they played good? What happened in this game, Greg?
I'll tell you what it reminded me a lot of was when the Packers played the Bears this year. It was tight in the first half, and in the second half, it was like the Packers just said, oh, well, we played a good first half, that's plenty, and the Saints just walked all over them in the second half. It was ugly. But I think in some ways the Saints are at home. The Packers, they don't have a good defense. They have an adequate defense, and against an offense like the Saints, they're just going to have a hell of a time with them. That's pretty much what happened. And the Packers were on, a 5-game win streak, so, you got to figure that's going to end eventually. The Saints are at home. They're tough at home. It was just one of those things, kind of like the Colts game. It's just one of those games where you go, yeah, it happened, and you move on.
So I want to talk about the NFC South for a second while we're on New Orleans. They are 3-4.
That's pretty much tied for first, isn't it?
They're in second place because Carolina's 3-4-1. New Orleans, technically, they're only a half game, or they're only game and a half up on Atlanta for third place.
Oh my!
Can we just somebody said a question. Can we just exchange the NFC South for the SEC West? Can we put Mississippi State, Alabama, Auburn, and Ole Miss instead of these guys?
Well, as long as they kept playing each other, I think they'd be great. But eventually, they're going to have to play out of their division, and then it would get ugly. But yeah, this is a horrible division. Just
really bad.
I mean,
is the division winner out of this division going to be 7-9?
It's possible.
6 and what?
Well, 10? I'll put it this way: if the Saints as long as they don't lose at home, the Saints should win it at 8-8, I would think. So
that's just so mind-boggling to me. Why? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up 8-8, but they shouldn't. How can they be this good at home and then that bad on the road?
I don't know.
Because remember when was it when they played Dallas at home? Yeah, Dallas at home.
Right.
And Dallas was a good football team at that point, and they beat them handily at home. I mean, the only or that was in Dallas. Sorry, that's right. They lost, but either way, I mean, they had to go into a tight game against Tampa Bay at home, but they still won it. Minnesota earlier too. But I don't know. They get San Francisco at home. They get Cincinnati at home. They get Baltimore at home 3 weeks in a row.
The Saints do?
Yeah, the Saints do.
So they could be 6-4 at the end of this. If they got 3 straight at home, they're going to be 6-4, and all of a sudden they're going to look like they're good again.
Yeah,
I don't get it either. I mean, I would understand it a little better if it was simply a dome thing. But even when they go to domes, they don't play well.
Right, like the Dallas game. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They lost the Falcons to open the season.
Right,
lost at Detroit.
Yeah, I just don't understand.
They only played one game outside this year, and they lost. And that was to the Browns.
It's a strange thing. Again, if it was just a matter of because we've seen teams that are good, like the old Rams teams were good inside, had a bit of a struggle outdoors. But they could still win in other domes. These guys, it's like the only place they can win is in the Superdome. You put them anywhere else, and they're god-awful. I don't get it either.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the road games. They go to Carolina on Thursday this week. So who knows what you're going to get out of that. They go to Pittsburgh. They go to Chicago in December, which should be
Forget it.
fun.
Well, I don't know if the Bears will win a game between now and then, but you can pretty much mark that one up as a win for them.
And then they finish off the year at Tampa Bay. So I want to say that they should be able to beat Tampa Bay on the road, but who the hell knows?
With this team, I wouldn't bet. I'm not saying they can beat anybody on the road because they haven't shown me they can.
It makes no sense.
No, it makes no sense.
I want to be able to understand this, but it doesn't compute with me how you can be so good at home and so awful on the road, because it's not just like simply they're a little bit better at home versus a little bit worse on the road. They are drastically different on both ends of the spectrum.
Right, and it wasn't like they brought in, say, the Buccaneers or somebody and pounded them at home. They beat a pretty good football team in the Packers at home.
Right.
And yet they lose. I don't know. I can't figure it out either, but until they figure it out, they're not going to go anywhere. That much I do know.
Currently, Carolina's in the driver's seat. We'll see what they can do. And I mean, they should have won the game on Sunday.
Yeah.
They probably should have beat the Bengals in that stupid tie too. But,
yep.
You know, that's the way football works sometimes, I guess.
If you're going to score, it's 37 points should win you a game most times.
Yeah. We'll move on to Monday Night Football, and the Colt McCoy era is here. Are you ready? Replacing Kirk Cousins at the helm, Colt McCoy with 2 straight victories for Washington as they go into Dallas and win 20-17 in overtime over the Cowboys. And I don't know, the Cowboys, DeMarco Murray still ran for 141 yards, but the Cowboys weren't able to do too much of anything else after that. Tony Romo got hurt midway through the game, a knee into his back, and we all know how he's had tons of back issues in his career. For some reason, they decided to put him back in later in the game.
I think they wanted to win. I
understand that, but if you want to win later, you probably want to get Tony Romo healthy.
Right.
And at that point, Brandon Weeden, he came in and did a decent job. He got them a touchdown, kept them in the game. I don't see why they needed to put Tony Romo in there, because when he went back in, he looked terrible.
Well, and that's
he looked like somebody that just had his back injured.
I think that Mike Tirico described him as looking like Fred Sanford when he walked off the field, and that's not a description you want to have of your quarterback. Yeah, because the thing, it would make more sense had the Cowboys won this game, but basically you risked your franchise quarterback for the same result you would have gotten had you left Brandon Weeden in to play the rest of the game.
Right.
And what you've done at this point is you have sacrificed maybe a good portion of your season to try to win one game last night. I don't think that was the smartest move to make at all. I'm with you. They should have left him out and just said, you know what, we'll get him healthy and we'll try it again next week.
Right. And, I mean, you look at the games they still have to play. if you win or lose to Washington, no big deal. But you want him healthy for, say, next week when you play Arizona.
Right.
And you can maybe get back into first place in the NFC. Or the 2 games you still have to play against Philadelphia so that you can win the division. Don't bother sending him out against the Redskins when you see, and especially because you saw Brandon Whedon play decently last night. You say, fine, Brandon's playing well. We're going to let him go. DeMarco's still running the ball well. We're going to see what we can get out of this game. And if we lose, we lose.
Right.
But we need Tony for later. And you risk him, and we don't know the extent of his injury yet. We don't know if he's going to be fine, if he's just going to get another injection, or I don't know how many back injections somebody can take over the course of a career. But I think it was just a bad personnel move. It's similar to when we saw Washington, the same Washington team,
right,
do with RG3.
Yeah,
you risk the short-term success for the long-term prospects.
Exactly, and this was just a bad move by the Cowboys across the board. But you know what? This is the kind of moves they've been making for the past however many years it's been. It was a move. It seems like it's all about the now with them, and they don't think about the future, even at this level. Do they think about the future? And
you know what I think, too? Because you saw the game. Did you see when Jerry Jones went down on the field?
I saw that he'd gone back up.
Well, he left his box, but he went down and he talked to Jason Garrett, and he kind of welcomed some of the guys off the field and talked to Tony Romo. I have the very distinct feeling after seeing that he specifically went down there and said, when Tony comes back, you're putting him in. And and Jason Garrett doesn't want to get fired.
Right.
He probably said, yeah, sure, anything you want, Jerry.
Well, yeah. Jerry Jones needs to stay the hell out of the way is what he needs to do because, like you said, I mean, it's so obvious. If Romo, because he got hurt again when he came back into the game, and this is the guy's back we're talking about here. This is something that could linger for a long, long time. And I just don't know that game was worth risking that, especially when you've got tough games coming up against Arizona and that. I just don't know if it was worth it last night, but it's the Cowboys, so of course they brought him back in.
Yeah. But yeah, Dallas 6-2, still on top of tied at the top of the NFC East due to the Eagles losing to the Cardinals. So everything's still very tight and in flux. But that is the week in NFL football. Let's go to college, shall we? We'll look at college and a very important week. Not necessarily the most interesting slate of games, but very important as it's too bad we couldn't do this podcast later in the day, as today is the very first release of the college football playoff committee rankings. So a lot of teams trying to make their case going into that first deliberation.
Do you think it's going to be just the top 4 teams?
What they release?
What they come up with? Yeah. Do you think it's going to be the top 4?
No. They're going to release a top 25.
Oh, okay. But
the way that they do it, I watched the video explaining it. It's kind of, I don't know if it's the best way to do it, but it's what they're going to do. What they're going to do is each member of the committee is initially going to list their top 25 teams in no particular order, just 25 teams who they think are the best, 25 teams in the country. And then teams, the only teams that are listed on at least 3 committee members' lists will then be put into the consideration for the actual top 25.
Okay.
And then they're going to list their top 6, and then from those top 6, they're going to have to pick a top 3, and then they do that they pick like 6 teams at a time and go 1, 2, 3, and then they say, okay, well then those are the top 3, and then they take the next 6, so from like 4 to 10, and then they go, who are the best 3 of that 6?
All right.
And then they move all the way down until you get 25. And so I don't know, but it'll be interesting. We can talk a little bit in a minute about who we think the initial playoff teams would be. But let's go to the scores. Thursday, East Carolina, way to go for you. Friday, the Oregon Ducks. The defense not looking great, but Marcus Mariota 5 touchdowns over Cal, trying to make their bid for a playoff. And I think, and something we'll talk about later, as you have to remember with these playoff teams, conference championships are going to play a big role in who gets actually picked. So as fun as we think it would be to have the 3 or 4 SEC teams play against each other, Oregon's one of the better one-loss conference champions right now. I think they're probably the best one-loss conference champion at this point.
As much as it would be cool to see them just do the SEC thing, I don't think they will because the outrage would be incredible.
Right.
Because not everyone is as enamored with the SEC, or I shouldn't say enamored, but not everybody's unbiased enough to look at the SEC and go, yeah, they are the best teams. A lot of people, it's just so – it's going to be conference champions. I still think what we're going to get is we're going to get if Florida State wins the ACC, it'll be them. Whoever comes out of the SEC, the Pac-12 will be the third representative, and then it's going to be a dogfight for that fourth spot because you're going to have – that's where you might get your extra SEC team or whatever.
That's what I think happens is you get the Auburn-Alabama winner in that third spot,
right.
I think.
Yeah.
And that's assuming Mississippi State goes on undefeated, but that's all we can tell right now.
Right.
But we'll move on to Saturday. And mentioning Mississippi State, going into the game, Kentucky was 5-2, and this was a road game in Kentucky. And for a while, the teams were kind of with each other. Kentucky kind of holding back; they were right there with them. But Mississippi State able to pull away late in the game. Kentucky tried an onside kick attempt late in the game, and Mississippi State actually returned the onside kick for a touchdown, and that really sealed the Wildcats' fate as the Bulldogs continue to stay undefeated with a 45-31 victory.
Mississippi State team. I think Kentucky is having a much better season than anybody thought. Mississippi State, this is great, and with Ole Miss losing, they're kind of in the driver's seat now. But they're really good. But I got to wait and see with these guys. I'm just not entirely 100% sold that they're this good. I think they're very, very, very good, but we'll wait and see. But they are the number one team in the country.
The number one team in the country. They're undefeated, and now the best team currently in Mississippi still.
Yeah,
as Ole Miss. Just a 7-10 loss on the road at LSU. LSU hasn't looked good for a lot of the season, but especially when they played some of the big boys here in the SEC. But they manned up and took down Ole Miss at home, or in Death Valley, I should say, 10-7.
That's
big
still
loss there for Ole Miss. Of Ole Miss and Mississippi State, I thought Ole Miss was the less impressive of the two.
Right.
They did beat Alabama, so good for them, but even when they beat Alabama, it was just you didn't feel that they were too much better than the Crimson Tide at that point.
Well, and this is something to be thought about too. Is that LSU? Granted, they're not dominant or anything this year, but they're still a good football team, and that's a tough place to. It's a tough place to play on a Saturday night. I mean, that's just a real tough place to go in and get a win. So. I'm surprised the score was as low as it is, but I'm not at all surprised that LSU won the game because that's just a tough place to play, and they're not a bad football team.
They're not. And with the win, LSU actually jumped up 8 spots all the way back up to number 16. not that matters at that point in the poll, but they're there.
Yeah.
If pure chaos erupts in front of them and everybody ends up with 2 losses, maybe LSU slides in there somewhere. But
I doubt it.
Yeah. I doubt it, too. Alabama with a 14-point win over Tennessee at Tennessee. Alabama keeps churning. Then Alabama, they move up to number 3 in the poll with Ole Miss falling down to number 7. So everybody in between there moved up. Auburn with a 17-point win over South Carolina.
I got a 7-point win here.
7? Yeah, 7.
42-35.
I can't do math.
Because here's South Carolina, again, doing what South Carolina does, which they keep it close and tease you and then lose.
Yeah, but Auburn, so they move up to number 4. Oregon, with the win over Cal, they move up to number 5. Michigan State, playing Michigan, usually supposed to be a big game. The Battle of Michigan.
Yeah, that's a huge rivalry.
For Paul Bunyan's axe or whatever the hell.
Isn't Michigan State won like the last 3 of these in a row or something like that now?
Yeah, and the Spartans didn't put any doubt in anybody's mind as they beat Michigan handily 35-11. God, Michigan's bad.
Yes, they are.
Still bad.
There's no way Brady Hoke survives this season. Just no way.
No. So Michigan State, they hold tight at number 8 as Notre Dame moved up to number 6, despite not playing. But it doesn't make any sense to me. But we'll keep going. Georgia did not play. They stand at number 9. Number 10 stands pat with TCU, who put up 82 points on Texas Tech.
Yeah, God.
82 points in a football game.
Call out the dogs, guys. Feel free to kind of take your foot off the gas for a little bit there, man.
They scored. It was 24-17 after the first quarter. Then it was 37-20 at halftime. 31 points in the third quarter, and they still scored 14 more in the fourth.
82. It looked like a basketball score.
Well, a very bad basketball score, but yes.
I get it that it's probably fun if you're on the team to score 82 points, but 82 points doesn't look right on a football scoreboard. Anything above like 58 is too much, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But I mean, was this a matter of them just not taking off their foot off the gas, or have they gone to their second and third string, and it's just a matter of like, look, we can't just kneel down every play?
Well, I think it's just part of the way TCU plays. They don't run the ball necessarily well, but they do pass, and they always pass long.
Well, and I'm sure that there are people that are going to get on them for running the score up and all that. But again, if they had their second team in and then their third team and they were still scoring points, there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, the thing is, too, once you get the committees in here and you have to try and impress them as you're going into these final weeks, TCU currently leading the Big 12. And, they're technically a game behind Kansas State in terms of Big 12 games. But they're the top-ranked team in the Big 12 right now, and if they want to make any sort of push towards the playoff, they might have to score 80 points on a bunch of these teams and say, hey, look at our offense.
Because they're good. The idea is it's not supposed to matter, but it does, and we all know it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course it does. There's the only way to compare things that are there's no common opponents between them is to say, well, they looked pretty impressive. They scored 70 points a week.
Yeah.
So that's that. But mentioning Kansas State, they hold tight at number 11 in the poll with a 24-0 shutout of the Texas Longhorns, the first shutout of Texas since 2004.
This Texas team, we both thought they were going to be pretty decent this year.
We were wrong.
Way wrong.
We were quite wrong.
Way wrong, yeah.
Your Ohio State Buckeyes
blew any chance they had of sneaking in the back door to get one of these playoffs with this game. Absolutely blew it. Just threw it right out the window.
They had to go into double overtime in Happy Valley, but they come out of it with a 31-24 win over the Nittany Lions.
And they, like I said, they trashed any shot they had because I don't care what they do the rest of the way, this game is going to be the one that costs them because they should have, especially the way they played in the first half, they should have walked away with this game, and they didn't. And that's it. It's over for them now.
Yeah, well, they're still at number 13, so who knows what happens when they beat Michigan State later.
Even if they win the Big Ten, let's say, and they go what would be 11-1 plus the Big Ten championship, I don't see the committee picking them over an SEC team for that fourth spot. I just don't see it.
Either way, I mean, in terms of conference champions, they're going to be behind the Big 12 winner.
Right.
They're going to be behind, if Notre Dame wins out, they're going to be behind Notre Dame. They're definitely going to be behind Oregon.
That's what I mean.
So
I don't think that the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or the Big 12 at this point have much of a shot, barring a lot of chaos in front of them, of making this playoff the first year because they just haven't been very impressive.
No.
So but yeah, Ohio State, had they dominated the rest of the way through, went through, cleaned up on Michigan State, won the Big Ten championship, maybe. But with this game and struggling the way they did against a Penn State team that's not bad, but nowhere near. They should have had no trouble with this, and that it killed them. I think it ruined it for them.
So they stay tied at number 13. Okay, this part of the poll boils my blood a little bit. So Arizona State, they go on the road and beat Washington 24-10. Washington's not a bad football team, 5-3. Good win for ASU. Not only 14 points, but not terrible. Arizona, they go on the road to Washington State, who is a terrible football team. And they beat them 59-37. Both teams won. But I guess that was enough reason to flip the two Arizona schools in the polls. As Arizona moves up to 14, ASU drops down to 15. Why? I don't know.
I don't get that either. This is Arizona, though. I mean, they could be number one next week the way they bounce around in the polls.
Well, so. I mean, they did beat Oregon that one time, so all praise to them, I guess.
Yeah, well.
I don't know.
It makes no sense. You're right.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but maybe I'm a little biased. Maybe that's why.
Maybe just a little.
Maybe just a little bit. Nebraska wipes the floor with Rutgers, 42-24. Clemson a tight one over Syracuse. West Virginia up in the rankings at 22. They beat up on Oklahoma State.
You know, that West Virginia team has turned into a pretty good football team this year, and I don't think anybody expected them to be where they're at this point.
Nope. Marshall, still undefeated, 8-0 with a 35-16 win over Florida Atlantic. And UCLA, a very tight double overtime win over the Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado's bad. UCLA continues to prove what I thought of them the whole time.
We were so right about this team, and they just continue to prove it every week.
Yeah, but looking at the bottom of the rankings.
Did you mention USC Utah?
Oh, I didn't.
Because I called that one. I said that the Utes would win this game.
Yep, the Utes in Utah, they take down the Trojans 24-21. Actually, the quarterback there for Utah, St. Clemente, California, Orange County prospect Travis Wilson takes down the USC Trojans. So how about that?
Nice win for the Utes.
The Utes. But we'll look at the poll again real quick. Mentioned ASU, Arizona State, flipping at 14-15. LSU jumps up 8 spots to number 16 because you beat an SEC team, and that's worth its weight in gold. I guess
that's better than beating a bad NFL team at this point.
Right. In Nebraska, of course, they drub Rutgers, so they drop a spot, which of course makes sense. Utah, they move up 1 spot. Oklahoma, despite not playing, moved down 2 spots in the poll. That stuff always boggles my mind how that even happens. West Virginia moves up 2 spots. East Carolina, all they did was keep winning football games, but they dropped 3 spots in the poll.
I don't get that either.
Clemson won. They drop a spot. Marshall holds pat at number 23. Number 24, Greg.
And it's about damn time.
Our Duke Blue Devils make it into the top 25.
The dark horse national championship playoff contention Duke Blue Devils. Or something like that.
Indeed. And UCLA holds pat at number 25.
Just wait and see when those Blue Devils go in and win the ACC and end up in the playoff. And we're going to be looking like geniuses.
It's interesting, though. You look at the others receiving votes. So UCLA last in the top 25 at 106. The next highest vote total, Colorado State with 29. And UCLA had 106. It's weird, right?
The whole thing's weird. I mean, you've got teams dropping that didn't play, teams dropping that won, teams moving up that didn't do shit to get there. I don't get it.
And North Dakota State, your Division I AA darlings, they're still sitting there with 3 other so good for them. But we'll close out the college football segment by trying to predict what our playoff teams would be. Not a top 25. But I think, for me, if we had to pick a playoff field right now, as it currently stands, Mississippi State, undefeated, number 1 team in the country, leading the SEC. We're going to say that they'd be the SEC champ in this scenario.
Right, I'm putting them in, absolutely.
They're in there. Florida State, defending national champion, leading the ACC, undefeated. By virtue of all that, they're in there. They're the second team in the playoff.
Right.
The third team, I guess we'll go with the conference champion route, and I would put Oregon in there because they're currently the highest rated champion. They have a good win over Michigan State at home. That adds to their resume. Conference championship would add to their resume. And I think that's something important is that I think the committee is going to put a lot of stress on the strength of schedule and the conference champions. Like, they're not going to do 3 SEC teams. It's just not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
They're going to put a conference champion, whether Oregon's better than Auburn or better than Alabama, or not. They're going to get in there.
Well, that's the thing. This playoff really, I think rightfully so in some respects, is that it's really putting a premium on winning your conference, which I think is fair. Right? And it really makes the SEC championship just more important than it's ever been at this point because, But, yeah, I'm with you. I think Oregon's your third team. Now, here's the question.
Right.
Do we put in – I go with Alabama as my next team.
I do too.
But we know how everyone loves Notre Dame. Do they slip past Alabama and get in, do you think, if they did it today?
No.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so because assuming Alabama were to finish the season with 1 loss, they would still beat Alabama still has to play Mississippi State.
Right, but I'm saying today. If we do it today.
Okay, if we do it today. like, that's the thing is you look down the road. Alabama still has to play Auburn. Alabama has to play Mississippi State. Auburn has to play Ole Miss. So the SEC is still kind of up in the air. But I think either way, you're going to get 2 SEC teams in.
I think so too.
I think it's whoever wins, and then whoever is the best one-loss team.
Right.
However, if you get to a situation where kind of everybody beats everybody, like say Alabama beats Mississippi State, and Auburn beats Alabama, and say Ole Miss beats Auburn, and say Mississippi State beats Ole Miss, and all those teams end up with 2 losses. Do you only let one SEC team in?
I think if you're looking at
because I think that's a very plausible scenario where all that could very well happen.
I really see the only way I see an SEC team that doesn't win the championship of the SEC getting into the playoffs is if they come into it with 1 loss. If they have 2 losses and you've got a bunch of 1-loss teams behind them, I hate to say it because it would be nonsense because we both know that Michigan State's not as good as Alabama or Auburn. But I think at that point in the game, it's going to have to be you're going to have to stay again. If it's 2-loss SEC teams we're talking about, they're not going to get in.
Right.
So it's going to but
there'll still be the SEC champ would get in.
Right.
Still get Florida State in. You probably get the Pac-12 champ, probably Oregon at this point.
Right, and then at that point you got to start looking at
it's Notre Dame or Michigan State probably.
Right, exactly.
Or maybe you consider TCU.
I tell you what, I think TCU, of the 3, I'm probably going with TCU out of that bunch.
I don't know. I love the fact they can score points, but there's no defense there.
That's true too.
There is nothing even resembling a defense in the Big 12.
But I do believe that for the Big 10 or the Big 12 to have a legitimate shot at getting into this first playoff, they're going to have the chaos happen in the SEC where you've got nothing but 2-loss teams left to choose from after the SEC championships play. Because other than that, they're not getting there. Because there's no argument you can make to put a 1-loss Michigan State team in over a 1-loss Alabama team. There's just no argument you can make for that. Right. So that's.
But yeah, as it stands currently, though, I think we're all kind of on the same boat where it's Mississippi State, Florida State, Alabama, and Oregon.
Right.
No disrespect to Auburn, but
no.
you're not going to get 3 SEC teams in there.
No, and they're going to go with the Pac-12 champion over. Again, it's just going to be a matter of if we get a team that's not a conference champion, it's going to be a 1-loss SEC team. Other than that, it's going to be. If Notre Dame goes the rest of the way and they end up with 1 loss, you can pretty much punch their ticket. So then it comes down to who gets that spot.
Yeah. Well, because Notre Dame, they still have to play Arizona State at ASU and USC.
Right.
Assuming USC, they're out of the rankings now, so it's not as impressive of a win as it could be.
No, but they're still good enough to beat Notre Dame, I think. I think Arizona State is too. Because Notre Dame has not impressed me. I'm sorry. I think Notre Dame going down into Tempe, very losable game for them. That's what I mean. They played Florida State tough, but I think Florida State's down a notch from last year. This Notre Dame team they have the most impressive game they played is the one they lost to Florida State. Other than that, they have really not done much. But it's going to be an interesting. It's going to get a lot more difficult before it gets more clear, I think, as we go on with this.
Yeah, definitely. Look to next week real quick. Florida State opens with Louisville on Thursday.
Yeah.
I don't think Auburn, Ole Miss. Here's one of the first big pillars in this SEC West kind of domino effect.
Right. Somebody's going to get knocked out of the picture with this game.
Right. Either whether it's in Ole Miss, so whoever wins still very much alive in the playoff. Whoever loses, they're at 2 losses, and the best they can hope for is to maybe slide in the back door to the SEC championship game.
Right.
But they're not going to. They're going to be eliminated from any kind of quote-unquote wild card contention, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Stanford goes to Oregon. In the past would have been a big game, but Stanford not what it used to be. Notre Dame does this yearly thing with Navy. Fun. You want to see a basketball score, Greg? Watch TCU West Virginia this week. If it's not 80-75, something happened.
Where is that game being played?
West Virginia.
I like the Mountaineers in that one. I do. The Mountaineers they're sneaky tough, man. They're sneaky good.
And if they do knock off TCU, I think you might as well just pull the Big 12 cord.
Right, that's it. This is TCU right now. TCU and who's the other one?
I mean, Kansas State's 4-0 in the Big 12. They're 6-1.
And their 1 loss came to Auburn, and they played Auburn tough.
And I think if there's any team that even you could say has a defense, it might be Kansas State in that conference.
If Kansas State can roll out the rest of the way and win the conference, if enough things happen, they've got a puncher's chance of making the playoff. But a lot of things would have to happen for it to go that far.
Yeah. Other ranked matchups, Ohio State, they host Illinois. Congratulations, Illinois, for winning a game last week. But then in terms of other ranked teams, 2 Pac-12 matchups. Arizona goes to UCLA, my least favorite football game every year, when Arizona and UCLA play each other. And Utah goes down to the desert to play Arizona State. That's a big game in the Pac-12 South. ASU, Utah.
That'll be a good game, I think. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to pick against your Sun Devils, but I like these Utes a lot.
They're playing well, that's for sure.
We'll see.
Taylor Kelly came back last week for ASU.
Wow, that makes a big difference.
I think that's all we got for college. But of course, can't forget Duke Blue Devils now in the rankings. Get to mention them every week because they're going to win out. They're going to win the ACC.
They're going to win, and when they win that ACC, that's when chaos will truly erupt, and that'll be awesome.
Yes. And national champion Duke Blue Devils.
You better believe
it right now. But seriously though, if Duke were to knock out Florida State,
that'd be great.
Do they get to the playoff? Do they seriously get to the playoff or no?
I don't know. I guess it would.
They can't, right?
Well, I mean, they would have. They've got a pretty good feather in their cap at that point. It would have to. A lot would depend on what happened by the end of the season.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, a couple interesting games, but not the most titillating week of college football. But hey, something always happens. You could get an Ole Miss LSU situation. So
yeah, we're going to have Ole Miss and who was it, Auburn play each other.
Yes, yeah.
One of them is done after this weekend. I
mean, if you have to watch one game, 7:00 Eastern, ESPN, Auburn, Ole Miss. That's especially with the playoff rankings coming out tonight.
Yeah.
We'll see where they land, both those teams in playoff rankings. And for the first time in college football history, at least Division I, we can say this is a playoff implication football game.
Yes, we can.
And that's fun to say.
It is.
Can't wait to watch it. I think that's going to do it for us. You're done with your high school season.
I am.
I've got a couple of weeks left before playoffs. Not too much going on. I'm doing a low-level game this week because I have a plane to catch Saturday morning. So
okay.
I got a low-level game because I requested it. But yeah, that'll do it. For Greg, I'm Zach. This is basically a football show. Follow all of our platforms. Follow the Basically a Podcast Network. And continue to support us in any way you can. And, you don't pay money for this. We don't get sponsorships, but,
That's not saying you couldn't write us a check if you wanted to.
We're not against sponsorship, guys.
We are not above taking some money, no. Anyway.
Anyway, for Greg, I'm Zach. This has been basically a football show. We will talk to you next week. Enjoy the football.